Hi, thank you for joining the Lily Mae Francis Foundation interview on depression. I appreciate you participating. I'm going to introduce myself. I am Lynn Collins Maie, co-founder of the Lily Mae Francis Foundation. And can you introduce yourself by telling me your name, your age, and the state in which you reside?
My name is Diamond. I am 28 years old and I live in Georgia.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Diamond, for participating. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump right into the questions. Okay.
Okay.
All right. First question is, what is your definition of depression?
My definition of depression would have to be like when someone's really, really sad, but they're unusually sad. So sad to the point where they don't want to do anything or they don't like anything or want to really go anywhere. It's just like debilitating sadness.
Okay.
I guess if I had to say a phrase.
Okay. Do you think most people experience depression from time to time?
I do. Now that I've gotten older, I think that they do. When I was younger, the answer was more of a no because I didn't think that I experienced depression. But as I started to go through life transition from like being a child to a young adult to an actual adult, I think that people do experience depression from time to time. They just may not know that what they're going through is depression.
Okay. All right. Well, do you experience depression? And if so, how do you cope?
Yes, I have experienced depression and I believe that I still do experience depression. Mine's is not severe. I pray it's not severe. So when I first had my like experience with depression, I did all the unhealthy strategies. So there was definitely like a lot of drugs, a lot of sex, a lot of just like not treating myself very well. Um, but I also didn't know I had depression, so it was a lot happening. I didn't really sleep, didn't really eat. But I still went to work and all that stuff, but it just was a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms that I tried to kind of take my mind off of whatever the issues were. Once I realized what was going on, I went back home, and then that was where I developed some healthier strategies. So I went to therapy. Before that, I journaled. I did things that were creative for me, and that I found joy in that. I love to take walks or go exercise, stare at trees, stuff like that. I like nature. Nature really helps a lot for me. Um, and as I've gotten older and had less time because of my career choice, it's been journaling, cooking, things that help me build confidence. Because my depression usually comes when I'm feeling unconfident or I have like low self esteem in what I'm doing or who I am.
Okay. Okay. Do you think enough attention and focus is given to mental illness and why?
Absolutely not. Just because it's not known all the ways that depression can hit a person or all the symptoms that can be attributed to depression. And I feel like that's the same thing for a large amount of mental health challenges that people go through. I think that my generation and younger talk about it, but I think that, well, we talk about it more, I should say. We talk about it more, but I think we talk about it with amongst each other. And the way that we talk about it is like jokingly or in a tone of minimization.
Mhm.
So it's more like you'll see it on Facebook in gifs or memes or posts and like, I have depression, whatever. But there's no actual desire to find a solution or to change it. It kind of to us, it seemed like growing up and now becomes a part of who we are. And I don't think people really talk about the fact that that's not necessarily who you have to be. It could be something that you're battling with mentally, but it's not who you are. You weren't born a depressed baby, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm not But I don't think people are born depressed. I think all the circumstances and not being able to have healthy coping mechanisms is what can lead to being depressed or other mental illnesses or challenges. And I think not having the coping mechanisms is a large symptom of not talking about the mental illness, because how do you find a solution or coping mechanisms to something that you ignore?
Okay. It's
So that
definitely interesting to hear that your age group actually talks about it to each other. So that's interesting. I've never heard that. So that's interesting fact to know. Okay. If you had a friend or a loved one experiencing depression or signs of mental illness, what advice would you give?
the advice I would give now, as a more experienced and I guess compassionate person, it would be that their feelings are valid. Give me a moment. Their feelings are valid and that they're not crazy. Um, it may feel like it. People might tell you that you are, people might act like you are, but what you're experiencing, the emotions that you're feeling are valid and they were given to you for a reason. They give you information of some sort, like data on how to move or what's happening or things about you that you may not have been paying attention to. Um, and just because it's different or unusual from what people are showing or what media or society is showing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're crazy. It just means that you're different or unique. So your feelings are valid, you're not crazy, and talk about it.
Talk to someone about it. Right.
Talk to someone or a piece of paper. Just get it out of your body.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Do you know where to find resources if someone was having a mental health crisis?
Outside of telling them to go to a therapist, not really. I know we have a suicide hotline, but I also know that that's not effective because there's so many people calling that hotline that people can't really get through. It's like calling 911 and the ambulance gets there 3 hours after the person's dead. What good are you? I'm sure it helps some people, but I think that where we are as a society, we have so many people that need it now, sadly, that you can't really get through to it, especially after it was made a whole song. Um now
What was made a whole song?
the number for the suicide hotline was a song by Logic.
Oh,
Yeah. So he made a song dedicated to helping people get help and bringing awareness to it, I would guess was his reason. But you know, he's a rapper and people listen to him. So now you have a whole bunch of people that know that number and it was already crowded to begin with.
I
So
wonder, though, because most people don't know where to go if somebody's having a mental health crisis, right? I think most people just automatically go to 911 because that's what we're familiar with. But I do think that because you mentioned the suicide hotline, I still think that there should be something else, right? Because I'm having a mental health crisis doesn't make me suicidal,
yeah,
right?
true.
So then I need to talk to someone about whatever the issue is that I'm having or my family member or loved one is having, right? So I think that there needs to do more. We need to have more resources in terms of people knowing where to go and numbers to call, more availability. So, okay.
Yeah, that's true. There's only the suicide hotline, but that's a specific case in therapy. Maybe like AA for alcoholics. Like there's those support groups if you have a specific thing, but no, not really outside of those.
Okay. Why do you think there is such a stigma attached to depression, mental health in our community?
I think it's because it's just kind of misunderstood. You know, it's something you really can't see. It's involved with the brain and the mental processes, and that field is so unseen. It's like you don't know what's going on there. And up until recently, brain research and brain studies, I mean, we just didn't have the technology to really be able to like analyze the brain and how it functions according to different stimuli the way that we that we have now. There's so much that you can learn from neuroscience and the way our brains respond to things now. But we didn't have that back then. And I think that a lot of, at least for my community's trauma, the Black community's trauma, I believe a lot of it comes from the enslavement of African people. And I very highly doubt that when there was all the trauma mentally that was coming about because of all of the forced things that we were subjected to, I don't think anybody cared. You know what I mean? I don't think they were like, "Oh, you're sad. Okay, cool. Let's figure it out." I and I think just whatever we were going through gets passed down. I believe that trauma and those different kind of mental challenges gets passed down because it's not just the brain that's going on, it's the coping mechanisms, the surroundings that help influence it. All those factors get passed down with it until something drastically changes. And I believe that that's a part of the reason we didn't have it back then when it was happening, and we don't have it now, along with not having information on how it affects the brain. Because I know we're not the only community that goes through it. But I would say that the biggest thing is that it was generational and that we just couldn't see it. So we didn't understand. It's like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. It's easier to just,
Generational and not addressed, right? And
yeah.
behavior passed down, possibly. Okay,
Mhm.
I really believe that too. All right, last question. How do you think we can start having regular conversations as it pertains to mental health in general?
For that one, I would say that since I know that my generation and below definitely already speak about it, continue to talk about it, but not in a joking or minimizing way. Like, I think we really need to sit down and have serious conversations about it. So you have anxiety. What's that like for you? Um, this is how I have anxiety. It's different from yours. This is what I do. What do you do? How did you have it? When did you start having it? Just really trying to open up those conversations and make it normal. Like you go to coffee and or tea and you talk about your mental health challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that would be a great start, especially since you guys are already having the conversation. It's just not a focused conversation. So I think it would definitely be helpful to start focusing those conversations. So, okay. Okay, Diamond, that was actually the last question I had for you. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to participate in this depression interview. And I want to make sure that we are able to circle back to you on other interviews if possible.
Yes, my pleasure.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Diamond. You have a great day.
You as well.